Harp on Sports, the Bar, podcast, media, audio, and radio network. What do we have in store for you on this edition of the program? A little Sunshine State secondary going into the draft weekend. The Dolphins, the Bucs, and the Jags, all in Vegas, were picked to finish second in their division. That change after the draft? We're going to look at that. Also, Cags the Stag. We know he's the main dude, man. He's the main reindeer, right? Got the branches, he's an elk with the gigantic rack is what he is. So much so that got intentionally walked, 4 times this past weekend? Gators Baseball, a game above 500. Down the stretch we go. A month to go. Going to tell you what you can expect, Gators Baseball fans, in the last month. And we're going to wrap up with looking back on the first month of the Major League Baseball season. We're 30 days in. Again, Harp on Sports, the Bar, podcast, media, audio, radio network. Follow, share, like, subscribe. At Harp on Sports Twitter, at Harp on Sports Instagram, Harp on Sports Facebook page, Harp on Sports YouTube channel. Auditory route, Harp on Sports, the Bar, under Spotify, under Buzzsprout, under Apple, iTunes, the Bar, also Apple Podcasts. And you can check it out, harponsports.com. All sorts of avenues for you. Okay, let's start off with this. Look, the Bucs, the Dolphins, and the Jags. Going into Thursday night, round 1 of the draft. Bucs, second place. Jags, second place. Dolphins, second place. According to Vegas. Now, you can sit there and say, well, the Dolphins will finish ahead of the Bills. Probably. But you still bet with the better quarterback. You just do. And to his injury history, Josh Allen, the success that the Bills have had the last few years, can't beat the Chiefs, but have been extremely successful the last 4 or 5 years. So it makes sense. Did that change anything? Did anything change this weekend? Well, the Falcons, a slim favorite because Kirk Cousins. Have all the weapons, they just needed the quarterback and got him. And now you can sit there and talk about what the curveball is by them selecting a quarterback in the first round. Michael Penix, I like him. Does it seem a little wonky? Yes, but he goes on to have a Patrick Mahomes type of career. Nobody's going to think anything of it. Then you go out and spend that big money. And you spend that big money and you're around Cousins. You're like, I don't know if this is going to work, man. We better protect ourselves. It all depends on it. Let's face it. It all depends on how long Kirk Cousins lasts. It does. People said 3 or 4 years the Packers were a fool for Jordan Love. Not so much now. Didn't they draft Jordan Love and then give Aaron Rodgers a big deal? So pay attention to that. But here's the thing. Looking at it from the Bucs perspective, the Dolphins perspective, and the Jags perspective. First, from the Bucs perspective. They are in a reset, not a rebuild or a reload. They're in a reset. The Tom Brady era put them in some pretty tough salary cap situations. So much so that last year and this year, things are really, really tight. Last year, they found a way to go 9-8. Things will ease up next year. Next year, they'll ease up. They got like $50 million, $60 million in cap space coming up. But right now, things are tight. They've got, ready for this, $45 million in money that they're going to owe Chris Godwin. $27 million this year, and then a void year of $18 the next. Shaq Barrett, let him go. I mean, you're talking more dead money. So this team's got a lot of dead money on the cap this year and next year. So Chris Godwin, they're going to pay him $18 million next year, or $18 million he counts against the cap. He's going to be gone in dead money. He's not going to be back. So I went through and I looked at this. With what they did structure-wise, was it Jalen McMillan? The fact that they bring in a wide receiver in the 3rd round, that shows me that that's a guy that's going to be the 3rd receiver behind Godwin. He's eventually going to take over for Godwin. Graham Barton on the offensive line. Center can slide over to guard. Okay, they're trying to rebuild that offensive line up front a little bit. And Chris Braswell, the edge from Alabama, he takes over for Shaq Barrett. They went through and they went hole, plug, rebuild. Or reset. You know what we're going to do? We're going to lose a receiver next year. We got Mike Evans for 3-4 more years here. What do? We need to find his number 2. Let's do it. So the first pick was starter. Second pick was starter. Third pick was number 3 that's going to be our number 2. They got 3 starters. And then Was it Tyree Smith at safety? He'll play. I don't know if he's going to start. But the Bucs addressed what they needed to address. Now, do I think it puts them ahead of the Falcons? Probably not, but it's close. Falcons did a nice job with their draft, too. A lot of question marks. I get it, but they did a nice job with their draft. Everybody just keeps pointing at the Michael Penix pick. Oh, okay. If he ends up being, Patrick Mahomes sat for a year, then he played. If he ends up being Jordan Love sat, played. Aaron Rodgers sat, played. It depends on what we're going to get out of him. The draft the guys sit and play, we'll see. You look back, over time that Drew Brees was selected, second round? And then the Chargers come along and draft Phillip Rivers. Well, Drew Brees still in a year. I know the year is expiring and there's $100 million on these contracts. I know. It's a lot. But still, where the Bucs sit with the Falcons, I think that's really close. When you look at the Jags, look, the Jags were a team last year, 9-8. The Jags were a football team last year that, when you look at it, it's a pretty good football team before Trevor Lawrence gets hurt. Calvin Ridley had a 1,000-yard season. They didn't want to pay him $25-30 million a year. I get it. You already got $25 million tied up in Christian Kirk. I get why they didn't want to re-sign him. I get it. You have to make choices in these situations. They preferred locking up Josh Allen more long-term than Calvin Ridley. So you rebuild through the draft. Chiefs had to make that decision with Javon Sneed. What do? Got to let him go because we value Chris Jones more. It's just the way, that's the price of doing business. So I look at this and what the Jags did. Brian Thomas is a wide receiver. I think he slides in right where Calvin Ridley is. Would you have Mason Smith, defensive tackle? What I think the Jags did that was interesting, 5 picks through the first 4 rounds, defensive tackle, offensive tackle, defensive tackle. It's obvious that the Jags looked up front and said, we need to shore this up a little bit. Defensive tackle, 2 defensive tackles. And I already mentioned Mason Smith. Jordan Jeffries. I look at this and I look at Josh Allen and what they did a couple years ago. They are trying to build this up front, and you have Cam Robinson that has salary. It's coming to an end probably for Cam Robinson. You see was it Javon Foster, who they drafted offensive tackle? So they start to rebuild these offensive and defensive fronts. Look, Duran said, look, we can add one weapon to Trevor Lawrence. We have Etienne in the backfield. We got 2 receivers now with Kirk and Brian Thomas. Let's not forget, we have Evan Ingram at tight end. Oh, Etienne at running back. Okay, add an offensive lineman. Okay, we're in good shape here. Everybody falls in love with teams that, okay, they win the division, come out of nowhere, win the division. Everybody falls in love with them. And look, the Texans look good with C.J. Stroud. But let's not forget, that was one of the Jags' last wins last year, wasn't it? Jags laid an egg against the Texans at home and then bounced back and beat them in Houston. Now, look, it fell apart on the Jags down the stretch. I get it. Trevor Lawrence got hurt and it got ugly for him. But I like the Jags draft. I do. They filled the holes that they needed to fill. I always try to have people tell me that you should draft the best available no matter what. Best available no matter what. So if that means 5 straight drafts, the best player on the board is a wide receiver, you should draft him. Best available no matter what. If that's 5 straight drafts where the best player on the board's a linebacker, you draft him. That's why that notion's ridiculous. It is just absurd. So I look at that structure. I like what the Jags did too. Did that close the gap on the Texans? I think it does. I think the Jags, what they did. Now, you could debate whether or not they selected the right person at those positions. I look at position and personnel. Position and person. It may be the right position, but the wrong person. That's why I think draft grades are ridiculous. So, but I do like person, position. Okay, boom, here you go. And the Jags and the Bucs both drafted the positions that they needed to draft. Now the question is it the right person? We'll see. And then, of course, the Dolphins and what the Dolphins did. You look at the Dolphins. The Dolphins are in salary cap hell this year as well. So the Jags aren't in a bad position salary cap wise. The Bucs are coming out of a bad position. The Dolphins are in trouble, or just because of the dead money. Jalen Ramsey, $33 million in dead money. Tyreek Hill, $53 million in dead money. Nick Chubb, $42 million in dead money. Are you kidding me? That's $120 million in dead money. That's a lot. That's a lot. This is the equivalent of, interest rates hitting on your car. The notes do. So they had to make some big moves. Xavier gets cut. And now, what do? Well, they go out, chop Robinson. Look at the first 4 rounds. They didn't have that many draft picks. Had to move around a little bit because they can afford to sign all these guys. Chop Robinson, edge. Got it. They had some injuries last year in the postseason. Struggled against the Chiefs because everybody was banged up. Patrick Paul, offensive tackle. Jalen Wright, running back. Okay, so what do? Up front, protect Tua. Add a running back to help out Tua in that offense. And they get an edge rusher. All right. The Bills lost so much that this is still close to me. But this is the Dolphins' year. They're pushing all their chips in because at some point they're going to have to make a decision on Tua. I guess you could franchise him again next year. You could try that out. You could try him out and franchise him until you could work out a long-term deal. The Dolphins will have much more flexibility next year. Jalen Ramsey's probably going to be gone. Who knows what they try to rework Tyreek's deal at that point. And, they get some help back there in the backfield. But it was a Dolphins team that, got banged up late in the year last year. Financially, they had to do this. They had, we only got 3 guys. We can add 3 guys. We can't spend a ton of money here because we overextended ourselves in the cap. This is the year the Dolphins push all their chips in. And are they the favorite over the Bills? You can make a case that they are. Now, not that this draft puts them over the top against the Bills because the Bills address their need at wide receiver as well. Josh Allen's still a hell of a quarterback. And 2, if he can stay healthy, that's fine. But all 3 of these teams, again, Vegas has them picked to finish second in their division. All 3 of these teams can still win their division next year. You bet they can. Which one's got the longest shot to win their division? Probably the Jags, just because the Texans are good. But, man, there's a lot of teams that make the playoffs, win playoff games next year, don't even make the playoffs. Look at the Bengals. The year after the Rams won the Super Bowl, nothing. We've seen it happen a couple of times. Eagles win a Super Bowl 2 years later. They don't make the postseason. So, look, all 3 of these teams did what they needed to do, filled their holes. The one you could point to that didn't fill all their holes were the Dolphins. But the Dolphins didn't have much of a choice. They only could take on so much because of where they are financially. And if it doesn't work out for Tua, they've got multiple picks next year. They can move up and try to get themselves another quarterback. Buffalo lost a lot. The Patriots, who knows which direction that's going to head. And the Jets with Aaron Rodgers, good luck. So all in all, I thought it was a good day. I thought all 3 of those teams did what they needed to do. All 3 of them. Look, when you get right down to it, all 3 of them should make the postseason next year. And the team that's built the best going forward, future-wise, is the Bucs. Because the Jags going to have to make Trevor Lawrence a big payday. Dolphins going to have to make a big payday for Tua coming up next year. Both those guys are going to have to get big deals next year. Meanwhile, the Bucs, they got Baker locked up for the next 4 years, and they're going to be coming out of cap issues. Now, you can sit there and say Tua's ceiling is higher, and so is Trevor Lawrence than Baker Mayfield's, but Mike Evans, the Bucs are in the best position moving forward. Okay, there you go. Good first weekend. Good. It was a good, solid draft. I enjoyed it. I watched a lot of it. Probably more of it than I've watched in the last 4 or 5 years. I usually consume a lot of it, but not nearly as much as I consumed this year. Okay, so from that to this. Major League Baseball. And then I'm going to get into Gator Baseball. We're 1 month in. We're a month in. Yeah, Major League Baseball is a month old. And there's 3 player storylines and 3 team storylines that I'm looking at. The first of which, let's start with the player storylines. To me, the 3 big storylines are the Rays trading Tyler Glasnow and what he's done with the Dodgers. He's their ace. He's 5-1. He's leading the league in strikeouts. So here's Tyler Glasnow, can't stay healthy in Tampa. Tampa's pitchers, the Rays pitchers are hurt. Roster's banged up. Rosarena's not doing anything. They are in a financial situation, so they have to move Glasnow. They move him. And what does he do? He goes out there and he's putting together a Cy Young season for the Dodgers. On pace to win 24, 25 games. Leading the league in strikeouts. Like, seriously, he's on pace to almost strike out 300 guys and win 24 games. So, Tyler Glasnow, to me, the third biggest storyline. He's anchoring that Dodgers staff. He's got 5 of their 15 wins. Mookie Betts. Mookie, good gracious. Look, the Red Sox are having a decent year. They're above 500, which I didn't think they would be, as May peaks around the corner. But Mookie Betts, again, is on pace to hit 30 home runs, drive in over 100 runs, and hit in the upper 300s. And the Red Sox, they gave him away 4 years ago. And what he's putting together here, I mean, good gracious. I mean, he's going to smash Dodger records as an outfielder. It's remarkable. So he's the other big story. So I got 2 big stories with the Dodgers guys. Even though Freddie Freeman hasn't played that well and Shohei's doing some things, they haven't gotten great pitching. And to me, the big thing of all the players that I've seen so far is Mike Trout, leading the league in home runs. Mike Trout, who's been hurt. You go back to 2020, COVID year. 2021, banged up. 22, healthy-ish. 23, banged up, hurt. Mike Trout, who was the epitome of, he was health. He stayed healthy. 40 home runs a year, first 8-9 years in the career. Last 4 years, he's been banged up. There's talk there that Mike Trout could track down Barry Bonds for a while. Not anymore. But what's Mike Trout? Mike Trout's back, and Mike Trout's pre-COVID form. So 3 players, those are 3 players in terms of storylines that I'm watching out of the gate the first month of the year. Those are 3 guys that grab my attention. Team-wise, Yankees, first place. Yankees and O's. A lot of people thought Baltimore was going to walk away with that division. I still think Baltimore is going to win that division, but the Yankees leading the O's, it's impressive. Especially without their ace. The fact that the Yankees are missing their ace, the fact that Garrett Cole's out, and the Yankees are in first place, pretty impressive. The fact that the Cubs are in first place, also impressive. Now they just dropped a series with the Red Sox. I guess they're right up there with Milwaukee, but not that it's surprising because we thought the Cubs would be better, but they've gotten solid pitching. They've gotten timely hitting. They struggled in this Red Sox series a little bit. So, to me, those are the 2 surprises on the good side. The surprise on the downside is, let's face it, the best team in the American League the last 7 or 8 years has been the Houston Astros. They haven't won the World Series every year, but they've been the best team in the American League the last 7, 8 years. They have been. Won a couple World Series. Are they a dynasty? No. Close. Need another one. They remind me a lot of the Giants teams from 15 years ago. That type of, that Giants team from 07 to 14. That 3 titles in 7, 8 years. Yeah, it's where the Astros are. Astros are in last place. Astros don't look very good. Verlander's back now, but health-wise. And the amazing thing is, Jose Altuve's on a tear. Jose Altuve is on pace to challenge Ichiro's single-season hit record the first month. Jose Altuve is having a monster year. He's on pace for like 30 home runs. So when you have that guy having that type of year and you're in last place, trouble. There's a team that's been the class of that division. Here's a team that has been the class of their league. Hasn't won it every year, but have been the team to beat in their league. And now? Oh boy. Now? Is it coming to an end? Is this little run coming to an end in Houston? Doesn't look good through the first month of the year. So those are the 3 big player storylines and the 3 big team storylines through the first month of the Major League Baseball season. Now, I did see that they're going to go through and they're going to change the uniforms next year. At least baseball's quick on the pivot on this. Quick as it took them a month to make the announcement. But in a year where all the Tommy John surgeries and all the injuries and all the elbow problems and the mess that baseball finds itself in terms of spotlight and stars. You got stars that are doing some things. Trout's back. You got some big the fact that Ohtani is doing what he's doing out of the gate hitting wise, and Yankees are in first place, Cubs are in first place. You got some good storylines in baseball. But it's just ugly start in terms of the Astros and just with the White Sox and Marlins. Oh my God. The Rays can't get healthy. Strange first month. But we are a month in. And those are the month big six that I have. And wrapping with this, talk a little Gator baseball. Florida Gator baseball. They've now lost 4 series in a row. So they are 3-6. Yeah. Actually, they're 3-9. Their last 12 SEC baseball games are 3-9. Picked up a big win Saturday night. Jack Caglione. But he got walked 4 times. Pitching around him now. The minute they pitch to him, he hits a grand slam. I said 3 or 4 weeks ago, you have to treat him like Barry Bonds. I'd walk him every time. As long as I was ahead, I'd even walk him with the bases loaded. It's not risking it anymore. 25 home runs. He's the best player in college baseball. But this team, 3-9 in their last 12 SEC games. 22-21, right? On the year. In order for them to finish above 500, they have to beat the FAUs. These Tuesday night games. You know, they have FAU, which is a makeup game from about a month ago that got rained out. And now here we are. And they're trying to get some other games coming up here. Gator Baseball's trying to get above 500. The only way I think Gator Baseball can get above 500 is with these Tuesday night games. They still have a big series coming up with who? Still a big series coming up with Tennessee, Kentucky, and Georgia. What are they? 9-12 in conference play. So you'd have to go 6-3 to finish 500 in the conference, which means you have to win every series or sweep one. You don't have to win every one, but if you don't win every series, you have to sweep one of them. So, best case scenario, those 9 games is 4-5, isn't it? If I told you go 4-5 in those games, that gets you to 500, and then you pick off your Tuesday night games. You're 2 games above 500, 3 games above 500 entering the SEC tournament. Probably enough to get you in. It's probably enough. But this team, let's face it, this team is a 500 baseball team with the best player in college baseball on it. The Florida Gators are a 500 baseball team with the best player in college baseball on it. They're competitive. They lose games in heartbreaking fashion. But they're a 500 team. And look, teams like that, you can get hot at the right time. Things click, it works. But there's also this impending doom, like, oh my God, here it comes again. Last year, you had aces and you thought, we got him. Now, with this baseball team, it's what can go wrong? Oh my God, what can go wrong now? Oh, geez, here we go again. It's like Purdue in the college basketball tournament the last few years before this year. Oh my God, what could go wrong now? Kind of where this is, isn't it? Red Sox for years, Cubs for years. What can go wrong? What can go wrong? Gator baseball, down the stretch they come. Somehow they can go 4-5 in these 9 games. These 9 conference games they have left. They'll finish above 500. They go 3-6 in these 9 games. White knuckle it. The dream scenario is 5-4. But that requires you to win 2 series or sweep one. And with Tennessee, Kentucky, and Georgia, it's going to be a tough road to hoe. It's there. It's possible. Although improbable. 22-21. I still think 30 wins is a good year for this team now. Enjoy Jack Caglione. Final month, he's a Florida Gator. Remarkable campaign. Likes of him don't come around too often. You look back, Tim Tebow, haven't replicated that yet. He's been gone for what? 13 years now? It's been a little longer than that. 14 years, 15 years Tim's been gone. Haven't replicated that. Basketball, the Joakim Noahs, he's been gone 16 years now. It's tough for those guys to come back. It's tough to find those guys. Al Horford's, it's tough to find those guys. So enjoy Jack Caglione. You may never see anything like that again. Enjoy him. Harp on Sports, the Bar Podcast, Media, Audio, Radio Network. Follow, share, like, subscribe at Harp on Sports Twitter, at Harp on Sports Instagram, Harp on Sports Auditory Route, Apple Podcasts, Buzzsprout, Spotify, under Harp on Sports, the Bar, Harp on Sports Facebook page, Harp on Sports, the YouTube channel, and of course, harponsports.com. Remember, stay clean, stay focused, stay strong. Frankenstein, have fun with your friends.